Yeah, so for this one, I don't know, Senate President Fan, I don't know if you caught what I said, which is we have close to 700 people registered to attend. So we're gonna have there's a lot of folks that are hungry for information.
That's great. Thanks, Louise, for doing this.
Well, thank you for spending your hour with us. Are you in your office, ma'am, or are you
Yes, I am.
Okay, yeah. Good morning, folks. If you're just joining us, thank you. We are going to allow others to join us as well. So we're gonna try and start at 8:01 in the morning. And Representative Boulding, LD27. I kept that remembered from last time.
Yeah. Same as Rios. Same as Rios.
I have authority in that district down there.
Luigi, did you see that question in the chat? There was a
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, good morning, folks. If you're just joining us, we're going to give others maybe just one more minute to join us as well. And then we're going to start the morning scoop. Senator Fan, have you had a chance to play in your backyard with the snow? Have you built some snowman?
I wish, but I didn't even go home this weekend. I had lots of things to do, and actually it was a good thing because I don't think I would have been able to get back down here Sunday afternoon or Monday morning.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's all back up. Yeah.
Went to that lovely convention.
Lots of fun.
No, it wasn't. Should have been up.
I did remind Mr. Wilder earlier, if you guys missed it, it was Mrs. Ward's birthday yesterday. I'm sure you sent flowers.
So it's 8:01 in the morning. I think we're going to start. Good morning, everybody. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Luigi Del Puerto. I'm the publisher and editor of the Arizona Capital Times. We have a lot to talk about this morning. But first, I want to thank our sponsors for engaging in this way and helping us to provide a platform in which we can talk about in this particular morning scoop, the shape of the 2021 session and the priorities of our legislative leaders. I want to thank David Martin, president of the Associated General Contractors Arizona chapter, and it's over 150 members. AGC is the advocate for the construction industry in Arizona and its members who are engaged in highway, heavy, and industrial municipal utility construction. They have been the leading voice for Maricopa County's Prop 400 extension as well, and the ability to continue to invest in the state's infrastructure and grow Arizona's economy. David?
Luigi, thank you very, very much. And we are extremely grateful with our partnership with the Cap Times and these events. We're grateful to be able to bring these kinds of programs to our fellow public policy professionals and the public. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and also want to congratulate High Ground on their 25th anniversary. Chuck, we've been through a lot together, and we're going to go through a lot more in the future. Also want to thank all the leaders on the phone participating, because if it wasn't for you, this program wouldn't happen. So thank you very, very much, Luigi, and thank you, the panelists, and also the participants.
Thank you, David. And I think you just dated Chuck by saying it's High Ground's 25th year anniversary. I want to also introduce and thank Tom Turin, who is the chairman of NACIRO. Tom developed the first utility scale solar project in Native American country, and prior to the co-founding of NACIRO, facilitated a $700 million transmission upgrade in California. NACIRO is developing facilities that will make gasoline from natural gas and renewable natural gas. Their proposed Kingman plant would cost $6 billion and employ 3,500 workers during 5 years of construction. Tom, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for hosting this wonderful I guess we're helping to host the program, but thank you for doing this. Thank you to the leadership. Thank you, Chuck, who has been a great friend of ours. We're very excited about the opportunity we have in Arizona. It's going to put a lot of people to work at a time when a lot of people need a job. So thank you all.
Thank you, Tom. And I also I want to thank Chuck Coughlin, who is the president of High Ground Public Affairs Incorporated. High Ground, of course, as David mentioned, is celebrating its 25th year anniversary this month and has a long history of public involvement in Arizona. Among its members are Doug Cole, Scott Smith, Jeff Cross, Jessica Blazina, Patrick Barrett, Barrett Coughlin, and Robin Richards. They round out the team of public affairs professionals at High Ground. Chuck, thank you to you and to your team.
Thank you, Luigi. It's a pleasure to be here and all the panelists and all the people joining the panel today. I'd like to take a second to add a little bit more about Mr. Treen. Mr. Treen and his team present a one-of-a-kind opportunity for Arizona to grow our economy and improve our environment. The zero sulfur gasoline that's manufactured by Nacero from natural gas will reduce ground level ozone that's restricting our growth in Arizona and the carbon we put into the atmosphere, all without extra cost to the consumer or the need to buy a new vehicle. Nacero represents the single largest private investment in the Arizona economy since the building of the Palo Verde nuclear generating station. We're proud to say that Senator TJ Shope and Representative Diego Espinoza are introducing legislation to define Nacero's Class 6 property tax status. The success of that legislation in this session of the legislature is the only thing keeping Arizona from being one of the first 3 states which would host Nacero. We're hopeful for its inclusion in this session of the legislature, understanding that it may be brief and consideration, perhaps a definitional consideration in the skinny budget. Thank you, Madam President, Mr. Speaker, minority leaders, Mr. Bolding and Ms. Rios. Very deeply grateful for your leadership in these very difficult times, and our prayers and best wishes are with you for a productive session. Thank you, Luigi.
Thank you, Chuck. We have a great panel this morning. Our panelists really don't need a whole lot of introduction. Joining us is Senator Rebecca Rios, who serves as Senate Minority Leader of the 55th Arizona Legislature. She has 25 years of extensive work in the behavioral health and nonprofit fields in our state. She first served in the legislature in 1995, and she's a veteran of both the House and the Senate chambers. Senator Rios is the daughter of former Arizona Senate President Pete Rios. Senator Rios, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Also joining us is Representative Reginald Bolding, who represents Legislative District 27, same as Senator Rios. Representative Bolding serves as the House Minority Leader of the 55th Legislature. He graduated at the top of his class from the University of Cincinnati, where he earned an undergraduate degree in criminal justice and international security. He turned down a full-ride law school scholarship to become a special education teacher in South Phoenix. And currently he runs a civic engagement organization, the Arizona Coalition for Change, which seeks to empower citizens to grow their civic and political power to change their communities for the better. Representative Bolding, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Also joining us is Senate President Karen Fan, who is the second female Senate President in the history of our state. Senator Fan represents Legislative District 1, which covers 8,000 square miles through Yavapai County and portions of Maricopa County. She also serves as chairwoman of the Senate Rules Committee. And I'm sorry, Senator Fan, do you still serve as chairman of Rules?
Yes, I sure do, Luigi.
Right, that's right. Thank you for confirming. And voters first elected her in November of 2016. She previously served as a state representative from 2011 to 2016. And she moved to Prescott at the age of 4 and has been a lifelong Republican. She also serves as a PC and is a member of the Rotary International on Elks. She also runs a small business. Thank you for joining us, Senator Fan.
Morning, Luigi.
And finally, we have Representative Rusty Bowers, who is the Speaker of the House and represents Legislative District 25. He's an artist and a sculptor, and you can see his artwork in the Arizona Legislature. He previously served as Government Relations Director for the Arizona Rock Products Association and the Arizona I'm sorry, as former government relations director for the Arizona Rock Products Association. He is interested immensely in, of course, art, but among other things, environmental resources, transportation, flat work infrastructures, highways, natural resources. Of course, he's also interested in forestry and rangeland management. Speaker Bowers, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for letting me be here.
Let me, to our audience and to our listeners, if you want to send in your questions via the chat room or the Q&A room, please do so. We encourage you to do exactly just that. We'll try to get to as many as we can toward the end of the program. I guess I'm going to start by asking Senate President Karen Fan. Well, I'm going to ask a softball question, ma'am. There's an ethics complaint that was filed against Senator Wendy Rogers. And I'm wondering if you've had a chance to speak with her, and if you did, if you can tell us what she has told you, for example, if she defended herself or effectively rejected the claims, any kind of, if you've had that interaction with her already.
So we have a process here in the Senate, and I've said from day one that if there is any complaint that is filed in the Senate, we will do our due diligence and follow the procedures. So she has spoken with our attorney, our Senate attorney, who advised her what the steps are. She has 7 days to file a response, a written response of her side, which she has not done yet. So we will see that whenever she gets to that point. Our Senate Ethics Chair of that committee is Senator Sina Kerr. She has the complaint, and that is the procedure. She's the one that will be looking at it and making decisions as to if there's validity there, how do we best move forward with it, and that's the process.
Have you personally had a chance to speak with her?
Only briefly, in the sense that I explained to her that she needed to make sure she got with the attorney and gave her an outline of basically what the procedures were.
Senator Rios, this is not the first time in which we've had a member of either the House or the Chamber face ethics complaints, for example, at the very beginning of the session. I want to get your thoughts on that one.
Well, I think, clearly many of us are very concerned about the allegations, specifically, the allegations that the young man made that he was being required to come to work even though he had COVID. I mean, that's kind of hits at a larger issue, I think, that we're concerned about in general with regard to worker protections. Clearly in the Senate, we have COVID protocols, and to the extent that those were allegedly not followed is very concerning. At the end of the day, she's due her due process, whether that's through the ethics committee, or I understand an EEOC complaint has also been filed. I mean, this will ultimately play out, but it's very concerning, and it's unfortunate that this young man was treated this way.
Thank you for those updates. House Speaker Bowers, both the House and the Senate, of course, have adopted new rules to minimize the exposure of legislators, staffers, and the public to COVID-19. I'm wondering, sir, at this point, do you have a good sense as to which rules are working and which ones potentially need tweaking?
Hey, I need to get you down here, Luigi, to be my hall monitor, for the masked police. But we have extensively reviewed these rules to try to make them a balance between those who feel a sense, maybe a little less critical sense of the urgency of the situation, and others that do and are really hunkered down. And between all of us, we're trying to get the right balance. It's been months, but I think we're where we can work along. It takes a little tolerance, but I've noticed movement on both sides, a lot more mask wearing. We've got plastic all over this place, and I'm hoping that we'll just plunk along and get it done. I sure don't want to get sick, and I don't want any more of our folks to get sick, and we've had some, and it's not fun.
Representative Bolding, sir, we've seen committee hearings in which the members who are in person in a committee room complained about some members not wearing a mask. I guess specifically Republican members not wearing a mask. I want to get your thoughts on that one, sir. are you seeing what Representative Bowers is seeing, which is some movement toward more, for example, mask wearing in your chamber?
So thanks, Luigi, for having us. So one of the things that's extremely important when we talk about participating in democracy is making sure that people can do it in a healthy and safe way. So the goal is to always make sure that if you have members of the public or you have staff or you have members who are in any committee rooms or who are on the floor of the House, that they're able to participate in the people's business without that fear of getting sick. And I think there has been a gradual moving forward of folks wearing masks, definitely on the House floor. I think in committees, that's a place that there still needs to be a lot more work. I think that the most important thing that we can do is just make sure that that members are absolutely recognizing that not wearing a mask themselves doesn't just directly impact them, and impacts others. So I think this session we have an opportunity to really show what we can do when we work together to get things done. And the mask wearing and making sure that the public is safe is important.
Senator Fan, ma'am, in your Senate rules, the ones that you adopted specifically to deal with COVID-19, one of the provisions there is that if some member, for example, is not wearing a mask on the floor, that you'll have to recess. And I've seen you caution members a couple times, to wear a mask on the floor. I guess the same question I have for you as I did with Representative Bolding. Are you seeing members get more comfortable with wearing a mask? And I guess the question is, at what point do you really actually step in and say, all right, you're not wearing a mask, we're going to recess right now?
Thank you. Actually, we're lucky we haven't done that yet. We have set this up here. I try and appreciate everybody's concerns about whether they physically cannot wear a mask to those that don't want. So we have set this up. They can participate from their office via Zoom. They can vote from the office. So it is their choice. They can stay in their office without a mask, or if they want to come to the floor or come to a committee meeting, they must wear the mask. And I'm thrilled to say that I know the ones that really don't like it, they have been good troopers about following the rules so far. So I have not had to take any further action.
I do have one question for Representative Bowers. Sir, if a member who had been on the House floor, for example, tested positive for COVID-19, and based on everything you've seen, that member may have interacted with a whole lot of other members. What happens at that point? Do you shut down operations in your chamber?
I'm thinking of a member that recently stayed home for a week, went through the typical protocols, had been tested positive over the weekend with the family, and she's back among us. She's healthy. We didn't have any other responses or any other hits. What would you say, when positive hits on other members or staff? But throughout the staff, we have 140 people that come and go around this place just in staff. So a couple hundred people all in all. And I know that COVID comes in and out. So I'm hopeful that those who come in the door will follow the rules, that we've asked them to show empathy for other people and to get a temperature check if they have any symptoms, stay home. And we have protocols about that throughout the building, wearing your mask down the hallways and common areas. If you're in your office, you can take it off, but if somebody else comes in, we ask you to put your mask on. And I try to do that. And I can't force elected people to do much that they, what would you say? I inspect them to do what's right. But I am grateful that for the most part we are. And I know it's irritating for some, but nobody has to stay in a meeting. No staffer has to stay in any meeting where they feel uncomfortable. No staffer, period. Not with a member, not with their member, not with anybody. And on the floor, it's the same way. We are set up where anybody can leave, anybody can vote. We're totally Zoomable, and we make it as principled as possible. And so we'll just clunk along. And I'd like to move into some business and get beyond it all. But I know it's going to dog us throughout the session. So we live with it and we work on it. We're imperfect people, but we're going to work with each other.
Obviously we've seen changes adopted by both chambers to keep staffers safe, to keep the public safe, and to keep members safe. And, because of these efforts to keep everybody safe, that has resulted in, for example, the public not being able to actually access, for example, committee hearings in person. I want to get Senator Rios' take on so far are the systems that you have put in place, at least for the Senate, to your mind, are they working? And I guess specifically when it comes to public engagement.
With regard to public engagement, I mean, clearly the public, we're all operating remotely for the most part, so that the public is also engaged remotely. One additional step that the Senate Democrat Caucus has taken is the ability for folks to participate or observe our caucus, because traditionally they would have to come in. Unlike the House, their caucus is televised. In the Senate, they're not televised. So unless they could physically come in, there was no way to observe caucus. We have provided the opportunity for folks that are interested. We'll provide a link so that they also can observe us. So we're trying. We've assisted folks with signing up for requests to speak. So to the extent possible, we are trying to accommodate folks so that they can participate, recognizing that there is a lot less public participation simply because of the environment. So those are a couple of the things that we've implemented to try and engage more of the public.
Senator Fan, ma'am, you have last year you passed a skinny budget, and this year I think you're calling it a backbone. Oh, sorry, a backup budget, something like that. So it's something similar to a skinny budget. Of course, the governor's office is very clearly saying, don't send me a skinny budget or a backbone budget. Let's pass a full budget. Are you going to pass a full budget?
Well, we certainly hope to, Luigi. So when we talked about skinny budget, I am so proud to say that our Republican and Democratic colleagues, we worked together. We started the budget, the chair of appropriations started the budget process early in September. And when we say skinny, it actually is all the baseline, plus we fulfilled all of our obligations with respect to the last piece of the 20 by 20, as well as a number of other things. It was a skinny budget because we still had a box of about $500 million set aside for members ask. And because of COVID, we had to shut down early and we never got to the members ask. So we have done the same this year. We have started in September. So I call it the backbone budget. This is the baseline plus the increases that normally go along. We have also put in a lot of great things about raises for our DPS, corrections, public safety. There are boxes there for members ask, whether it be for tax packages or infrastructure packages, education. So with all luck, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that COVID doesn't shut us down and we can pass the full budget with all of our members ask in there.
Sorry, I was muted there for a second. Representative Boulding, I guess the same question to you, sir. I guess a modified question. Do you expect the legislature to pass a full budget? And what are your thoughts between, passing a full budget and a skinny budget? And I guess what might prompt that is, for example, you needed to cut the session short for any other reason, then you approve a skinny budget. Your thoughts, sir?
Right now, one of the things I think is going to be the most important that we have to tackle as a state is COVID. I mean, the reality is that we've been in session, a couple of weeks now, and there has not been substantial COVID legislation that has made its way through committee and touched the floor. I mean, this is an opportunity for us to actually, work together, get some emergency clause legislation so we can impact people today, right now. Because the reality is while we know that there is a vaccine that is being distributed throughout the state, there are still social safety nets that still need to be filled. So right now, the major pieces, if we can work on some legislation that we can get on the floor immediately, whether it's pieces of legislation that will fill the social safety net, whether it's through monetary values or if it's through system fixes that we need to make. We need to do that right now. In addition to that, we can walk and chew gum at the same time and also work on a budget that's going to actually ensure that these other functions of our state government are actually filled. So priority right now, let's get COVID under control. We have more than enough resources to do that. Let's go ahead and put some of those pieces of legislation up for debate and start to move that forward.
Representative Bauer, sir, yesterday Senate Republicans unveiled their budget priorities, and at the top of that list, they say $450 million a year in tax cuts. That includes one-time tax cut of about, and correct me, Senator Fan, it's about $250 million, right? And about $200 million in ongoing tax cuts. Your thoughts on this proposal, sir?
I'm very glad that the president has forged ahead with their budget, and they just do a great job over there. And we're doing the same thing. We had a presentation yesterday morning for 2 hours on the budget. And there are some things that we're, I think, in lockstep on, like in infrastructure, what Chuck and David have talked about earlier. And we certainly welcome Tom and his incredible vision into our state. But that takes infrastructure, it takes broadband, it takes lots of backbone in technology. And so there will be differences in our two visions. But I think through the time that we have, and like Mr. Boulding said, he's very optimistic about walking and chewing gum. When he gets my age, I crawl a lot more when I chew gum, and that way I don't fall on my face as much. But there's things that we can get done and that are important to the entire population. So we look at it. We don't diminish any effort they've done, and we will do our own and work with everybody to hammer through a budget that's good for the state.
Both Senator Republican. I'm sorry, I missed that second part, sir.
Is that general enough? I mean,
It's broad enough. It's very broad enough. Let me go back to the tax cuts. So both the governor's office and now the Senate Republicans caucus have proposed tax cuts. And I think the governor is a graduated tax cut phased in, 200 million, 400 million, 600 million. So 1.2 billion over 3 years, something like that. How much in tax cut realistically do you think will get passed? Well, I guess, let me go back just to my original question, which is what do you think of $450 million in tax cuts?
I think if we could pull off 450 million, that'd be great. I don't know that we can, but I think that'd be great.
What's your hesitation? Why do you think you're not as confident that you can get $450 million in tax cuts this year?
Not that I'm not confident. It's that I've been through here for what? This is going to be close to 3 decades. And Chuck has had to look at me get bald while he has had a full head of hair this whole time. But we know that through time, there will be things that come up in a session. We know that there'll be balancing and lots of tugs and pulls in all different directions. We would like to work towards a restructuring of our income tax structure. But it takes time to do that. And we have some incredible people, incredible talent. Mr. Toma and others, Mrs. Cobb, they're focused. Believe me, after that meeting yesterday, they're really focused. And so I sit back and do the cheerleading, and they do a lot of work. But I'm not hesitant about cutting taxes, just how we structure it, how's the best benefit to the state. And with all the other needs, I'm not trying to spend money, but we do have needs. While we have a little money, we need to take care of infrastructure, especially of all kinds, human infrastructure, broadband, education, etc.
I want to go through Senator Rios and Representative Boulding to get your thoughts on the tax cuts, but tax cut proposals from the Senate. But I want to ask Senate President Karen Fan, ma'am, I don't think you've detailed exactly what tax cuts you're looking at. Am I right there? You don't have the specifics yet.
You're correct, Luigi. They are boxes, what we call tax cut boxes, because we are not sure exactly what the governor is going to be asking for. We know that some of the Senate members have bills asking for certain things. We have House members we know that are be asking. I'd like to say that all tax cuts aren't bad. I actually have some Democratic members that have dropped bills that have asked for tax cuts that would help various segments of our population. I think we need to strike that balance. I will interject something. While I'm always for keeping government to the necessities and not over bloating it and letting more people keep more of their money, I also want to say, as a business owner, when times are good, this is the time you play catch up with that one-time money. This is the time that you pay off your debt like PSPRS to the best you can. What we're proposing there of the amount we're paying off, it's going to save us $24 million a year in debt service that could go into going ahead and paying off the rest of it or into other projects. I believe in investing in infrastructure, probably at a higher rate than what's currently in the budget right now. I'm concerned about the homeless people that the population is growing. We need to do something to turn that around. So while we're all working hard together, we need to strike that balance.
Senator Rios, let me go to you, ma'am. Your thoughts on the Senate Republican proposal that was unveiled yesterday. Am I going to see your caucus unanimously vote for this proposal?
Of course.
Probably not. I think what's most discouraging at this point is the prioritizing of tax cuts, right? I mean, it is literally raining, figuratively raining, but yet we have a governor that won't touch the rainy day fund. We have billions of dollars of COVID money coming in, and yet the priority is to and give tax cuts. And we, again, don't know, and the devil's always in the details, who are these tax cuts going to? Again, people in Arizona, for some, it's been great. For many, it's been very difficult. People that have lost their jobs, that have lost their homes, they can't access our cumbersome unemployment insurance program. And yet this legislature, I think, is very tone deaf and is prioritizing tax cuts. I mean, we have some real needs out there. And so I'm frustrated. I know that members of my caucus are frustrated. We really need to focus on helping those people that most need help right now. To the president and the speaker's point about investing in infrastructure and, education, yes, absolutely. Those also need to be prioritized over tax.
President Boulding, I guess the same question to you, sir, but let me modify it just a little bit. What about the idea that, there's potentially $2 billion in quote unquote surplus revenue that the state has? That includes the $1 billion in the rainy day fund, and of course, a very rosy revenue picture, at the end of this current fiscal year. And the idea, therefore, is that, look, if we have this amount in our state treasury, it is the right thing to do to give this back to the people, including businesses, for example, because at this point they need help, and a tax cut will help stimulate the economy further.
Well, I mean, there's a number of things that stimulate the economy, and the reality is right now what we are not seeing is people saying we need $1.2 billion in tax cuts. That's just not the reality. Right now, as a state, we've always had one of the most restrictive unemployment insurance systems in the country. $240 a week that we were giving people and some folks aren't even receiving that. So if we're looking at ways to stimulate the economy, how about we give more resources to people who've been struck by COVID through unemployment, give them an opportunity to have resources so they can put money into the economy. We have bills right now that create small business assistance grants. So let's take some of those dollars, give them to our small businesses, allow them to begin to hire individuals who they may have had to lay off or let go, or increase their supply chain and able to buy more resources. Let's provide them with those resources. So child care assistance. We have folks right now who can't go to work because you have virtual learning that's taking place. We know there's families who are literally they're home with their kid as an education provider, at the same time trying to figure out how they can get working and employment situated. Let's provide those child care subsidies for for these families. So there's a number of things that we can do to stimulate the economy, and it can't be something that is just boiled down to tax cuts that we don't know where they're coming from or who they're going to be targeted to. The biggest issue that I'm concerned about is I do believe that, you know, this blanket bill of tax cuts are designed to undo the will of the voters. With Prop 208, we know that the voters in Arizona strictly said that our most wealthiest Arizonans, we want you to pay your fair share. And we're asking you to pay a little bit more money in order to make sure that we can have, you know, nearly $1 billion more in our education system. And we had a legislature that looks like it's saying, we got your back. Don't worry about what the voters said. We're going to take care of you down here at the legislature. I just think that's fundamentally the wrong way to go.
Senator Fan, I want to get your reaction to that, ma'am.
Thank you, Luigi. And while I respect my colleagues' opinions, I disagree with some of that. As I said before, you know, government should do what people can't do for themselves. And when we talk about, if you want to talk about 208, I find it really scary that we're going down this path, that we're going to pick and choose. So anybody that's successful is supposed to pay more money because they say pay their fair share. I don't know about you, but I pay more than my fair share. You know, and so to be taxed more and more and more. And remember, it was sold as a bill of goods that it was only going to be taxing, quote, the rich people that were over 250 or 500,000 married, single or married. But this is hitting small businesses. This is hitting LLCs, and it's just wrong that we do it this way, because if we're going to do it this way now, Arizona is now going to be having one of the highest tax brackets in the entire nation. And if this is all it takes is that 50+1 can pass something on the ballot, God help us, because where are we going to be at 5 or 10 years from now when everybody just keeps piling on and saying, oh, let the businesses pay for it. Let the, quote, rich people pay for it. I think it's a wrong direction to be sending our state.
I would just say to that point, it takes 50+1 at the state legislature to approve tax cuts. I mean, that's exactly what we do down here at the legislature. You only need 16 in the Senate, 31 in the House, and we have a tax cut. So why shouldn't that be the same for voters?
Because to that point, it takes 3/4 of a vote supermajority to do a tax increase down here. So why isn't that good for the voters as well?
That should be also good for tax cuts. So if you want to run legislation that says that we need at least a supermajority to pass a tax cut, you know, I would be all for it.
Representative Bowers, I want to ask you about the same thing, sir. So the idea is that you know, you're passing tax cuts to really counteract Proposition 208. Is that a reasonable assessment of the tax cut proposals that are going to be coming out of the state legislature?
Luigi, it's wonderful that after 28 years of being around this place that we finally have a tax cut thought. Oh, yeah, we've had that for about 28 years in a row. I mean, it's a consistency that if we are successful, that some of that success should be returned to the people. We've done it for decades. And so to suddenly say that we're going to tax cut isn't unusual. And so the idea of having, okay, let's go have the debate. I think what the underlying problem is that we have a change in a philosophy through education and through the indoctrination of social media, et cetera, that somebody else should be taxed, not me, somebody else. And instead of saying my fair share is my fair share. My kids go to school. Am I supporting my kids enough to go to school? What am I doing? And that philosophy, I think, is dangerous when it gets applied to a public policy. But tax cutting isn't new. And many people have been pushing for lower tax brackets. I mean, in the last 3-4 years, we've done this. So this is just an extension of what we've been doing for a long time. And now we have an opportunity to look at it more seriously. But as I said, there are infrastructure needs that we need. While we have money, we better prepare. You don't, when there's a drought on the horizon, when we have 15 years of rain, 15 days of rain last year, thankfully we got some rain, but we pray it keeps up. But we better start looking at water and water infrastructure and investments in those things too, along with our tax cuts. So it's not just focused on the 208 debate, which I think is a good debate to keep at, but we need to have our infrastructure and other things as well in place.
I want to ask just Senator Rios a quick reaction, and then we'll move on to another subject. Go ahead, ma'am.
I think the reality is this. This is a legislature, and I've been down there since 1995, that has systematically starved public education to the point that teachers, parents, allies took this into their own hands. This is direct democracy. This is Arizonans saying, enough. If you're not going to fund public education, we will do it ourselves. And so if anything, this needs to be a wake-up call to the legislature that we cannot continue, and I don't include myself, but they cannot continue to ignore the needs in Arizona, specifically public education, and then be upset when citizens take this into their own hands. And you're already hearing, well, goodness, we need to change the initiative process. We need to make it more difficult for Arizonans to create direct democracy and put laws into place. That is not the reaction we should have to punish Arizonans, right? Folks are trying to tell us what they think is important, and we're not listening. And now we're going to see an additional attack on the initiative process, and it's just wrong. And so I hope that the legislature recognizes that when the legislature fails to do the work that the people want, the people will take it into their own hands.
Senator Fan, ma'am, I want to ask you, there are several proposals in your chamber, and I guess in the House as well, but several proposals in your chamber that would seek to limit the emergency powers of the governor. And they come in various forms. But the idea is that, the overarching idea is that let's give legislators more oversight, or I guess just oversight of the governor's ability to impose or mandate certain things. Realistically, what can come out of the legislature, and do you then see the governor effectively curtailing his own authority by approving that?
So yes, there's to my head count right now, there's about 6 bills in the Senate, and I'm hearing there might be at least 6 over in the House. There is already a number of states, many states across the nation, that has already changed their governor emergency rules as well, because when they were passed, nobody thought it would be something that would be of this magnitude for this long. It was assumed it would be a tornado, a flood, a rodeo Chetaskai fire. So we have all realized that the legislators need to be involved with this process. And I believe that there should be a good bipartisan bill that we can all adopt. And I'd personally like to take it to the voters that says, the governor has the opportunity and the ability to be able to step in to save lives, save property, call in the National Guard, whatever needs to be done. But after a certain period of time, the legislative body needs to be pulled back in and be a part of that process. I totally appreciate everything our governor's going through, as well as all the other governors. This is a no-win situation. We've never handled something of this magnitude, so I know they're trying their best. But this is one thing that we have found is the legislators need to be involved so that the people's voices are being heard as well.
So at the very least, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is that at the very least, you anticipate a legislation that gets to the governor's desk that to a certain extent limits the time frame in which the governor could put the state under a state of emergency, with the idea that the legislature, that he needs to ask the legislature to extend it.
He has said publicly that he is open to making some good, solid modifications in the future. He understands, and I believe he will.
Representative Bowers, I want to ask you something that Senator Kavanaugh or Representative Kavanaugh had sent out to everybody over the weekend, and that is a counter argument to the proposal to lift the governor's executive order emergency declaration right away. And his reasoning is that if you did that, instead of having a uniform or kind of a uniform statewide standard for what businesses and people should or should not be able to do, you basically have, a patchwork of rules, in different cities. And I wonder what you think of that argument.
Hey, the argument was from Ledge Counsel, not from Mr. Kavanaugh. And they specifically said that if he lifts his executive order, then that in any way holds down the cities, then the cities are open. They can do whatever they want on those issues. If he issues an order on a specific issue, his order is binding on everybody. If without that order, then all those cities and those counties have ability to institute or impact their citizens as they wish. And we've already seen what they did from the first time. And so I think that's a very powerful argument for us to be very wise before we go poking at a windmill, that we better make sure that we're doing the right thing, we have the right balance. And so it's going to take some deliberation. I think what Karen said about sending it to the ballot, I think is a good thing, that we should let the people be involved, but also in the immediacy of right now, what can we do that we can agree that we have a good balance in his authorities and powers, and that we are involved in taking testimony, getting the people's pulse, making sure that we're not going too far or that we're being inequitable in the application of emergency rule.
Speaker Bowers, what I'm hearing is this one. What I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing from you is you don't anticipate the legislature doing right now to lift the governor's emergency powers. You don't see that happening anytime soon.
I think that there are people who want that. They've said so publicly. I just don't think that's wise.
Senator Rios?
Without something to replace it, we should not do that with immediacy.
Senator Rios, I guess the same question to you, ma'am.
Well, we support the governor's power to issue executive orders. I think that's important. And we are not looking to take that power away from him. And yet we're not happy, right? We believe he could have and should be doing more in terms of implementing COVID mitigation strategies. But to take that power away from him under the false pretense that the legislature can somehow come together and, in a compromise, come up with something better is disingenuous. I mean, the fact of the matter is, this is a legislature that wants to do even less than what the governor has done. And so we will be opposing any attempts to take away his executive power.
Before I go to Representative Bolding, Senator Fan, I want to ask you real quick, ma'am, you have this sort of a rule now, maybe an informal rule in which you will not allow controversial measures to actually get out of your chamber. We've seen you exercise this a couple times last year, for example. What are exactly the parameters for what you would consider too controversial that they should not get out of your chamber?
So there's a fine line by not tamping down, if you will, free speech or people do things. But if there's something that is wholly unpopular and there's just no way there's going to get votes or you're not going to have any meaningful debate or discussion about it, then why would we put it up on the board? So far, I can tell you right now, and with all the bills I've assigned, I haven't come across one yet. So I think I've assigned every single one to a committee and we'll see where it goes. But hopefully we won't have that problem this year.
Well, there is one bill that it looks to me is going to be controversial, whether you agree with it or not. And that is Representative Blackman's proposal to penalize, to put a harsher penalty, if you will, or even penalize women who undergo an abortion. Is that DOA in your chamber then?
Well, he's a representative, so that would be Speaker Bowers' problem right now, but I'll bet you vodka martini that it never makes it out of the House chamber.
Representative Bowers, is that what's going to happen?
Can she change it to maybe some chocolate?
Okay, we'll do that.
Representative Bolding, you have pushed for changes in criminal justice arena. And I guess that my question to you is, what do you think is realistic this year in terms of what could actually get to the governor's desk? And that would entail getting out of your chamber and maybe even potentially getting the speaker's support.
You know what? It really truly all depends on how much courage we want to have as members, and how well we can, work together. I mean, anytime you're talking about criminal justice reform, I totally believe it's going to take a bipartisan approach and effort. And we've had bipartisan support on criminal justice reform issues for years, session after session. We talk about it, it's the high point. And then ultimately, a few stakeholders, they come and they give you these bullet points on why this thing would never work, and then the status quo remains. And I think it's time that we push back on that. When we look at Arizona and us having, one of the highest incarceration rates in the country, that's not what we want to be known for. So we have, opportunities to look at things like earned release credit. And I know there's a number of different bills that are floating around, a few in the Republican caucus, also some in the Democratic caucus. So that's an area for us to sit down and see what we can actually do to move through that process. Police reform is also something that we know that the governor talked about a while ago. He's followed the lead of some of my Democratic colleagues in both the House and the Senate, and those are things that we can do and fix now. There's pieces of legislation that already are in the hopper that we can jump on, and it's going to take us having the courage to do it, and recognizing that some people won't be excited about it, but there will be a lot more who will be. And the system will actually work out much better.
Representative Bowers, what do you think of Representative Bolding's proposal to limit qualified immunity and make it easier to hold police officers civilly liable in brutality cases, if you will?
I'm open to any discussion, but there are principles that I won't give up on. And one is that we do need trained, capable presence in our cities of police. And right now it's hard with the abuse of both the citizenry by some and the general view of police by many, that it's very difficult to keep police. This is not something I play with. And so I look at that immunity, I'll look at anything. And in fact, we're moving most bills introduced here get a hearing, or at least we're sending them along to the committees. That's better said. And I'm not afraid of the discussion, but we shouldn't also be afraid of the outcomes. We need strong, supported, trained police, responsible police, yes, but I don't want to be like Martin Luther having the drunk sailor fall off from one side of the mule. When he gets back on, he falls off from the other mule. On the other side, I want him to sit on the mule and ride. And that's what I'm after.
What about the proposals to punish rioters more harshly? And I guess another part of the equation might be proposals to penalize cities that cut their police budgets.
I don't want to backfill like Flagstaff wanted us to do with the minimum wage. They hiked it higher than the state and then wanted us to backfill it. If a city is going to take punitive measures against their police force, I'm not going to backfill it, but their people will certainly feel it. And again, drunk sailors falling off one side, then the other side. That's very foolish.
Senator Rios, let me ask you, from your end, if there is one legislation that the Senate Democratic Caucus really needs to see get enacted into law, what would it be?
Well, I think from our perspective, we want to have a seat at the table with regard to the budget, right? Because that's where the majority of the appropriation and the ability to help folks, particularly those impacted by COVID, are going to happen. And so we made that clear. We had an opportunity to meet with the governor, all four of us, prior to session, and basically made that plea. Let us help. Let us be at the table when you're crafting that budget. Don't come after the facts, looking for votes, because I think that at the end of the day, that's where we're looking at making, schools whole, appropriating COVID relief, talking about these, billion-dollar tax cuts. And so that is the piece of legislation that I think Democrats are most concerned about and that we need to be involved with. And like I told the governor, if you look at our legislature, we're only 2 members shy of being evenly split. And so, this historic method of keeping Democrats completely sidelined shouldn't continue to occur. And I told the governor, cut off the right and the left, work down the middle, and let's get a true bipartisan budget through. So that is my hope. Whether or not that occurs remains to be seen, but that is, that is where we need to be, and that's the focus of Democrats.
Senator Fan, ma'am, you've heard Senator Rios. Are you going to invite her and the Democratic caucus to actually sit down and negotiate the budget in your chamber?
Obviously, I will be having a number of meetings with their majority staff, their minority majority staff over there. Traditionally, the cage has only been conducted with whoever holds the majority, and part of that reason is quite honestly, they don't call it the cage for nothing. We have some good knockdown, drag out fights between the House and the Senate to come to something that both bodies can agree on. And then we have a knockdown, drag out fight with the governor's staff to do the same. So adding another in there would be difficult to ever get to a resolution. However, I think everybody knows that Representative Cobb over there, as well as Senator Gowan and myself and Speaker Bowers, we will go to bat for these many of these Democratic requests. And as it was pointed out, there's only a 1-person margin in both the House and the Senate. So I think it's behoove us to work with them as best we can.
I think both Representative Golding and Senator Rios would like to be very much in that cage fight. Representative Golding, is that a fair assumption?
I think it's a fair assumption. I think it's also something that, we have the ability to set the tone for the state. And, the way, just because things were always done one particular way doesn't mean that they always have to be done that way. This is a new year, right? There's a global pandemic that's happening right now. This is a chance for us to really set the tone for the state. And you have a state that has clearly shown that it is not only electing Democrats at the top of the ticket, but electing Republicans as well. And it's a state that want their leaders to work together. And look, there's going to be some things that we agree on. There's going to be some things that we disagree on. But it's interesting because typically the legislature is one of the only places where you begin conversations on where you disagree. And then you move then the relationships start from there. But I think that there's a lot of things that we can talk about and fix. And I think a lot of it has to start with COVID. And then we move on to some other issues that make sense, like broadband infrastructure, education, which is always key, and from there.
I do want to get to the audience questions, and there's one that I think I've seen a couple times being asked, which is, can something be done so that people can sign up to the Request to Speak program and not have to do that in person by going to state offices, for example, to initially have that ability? Senator Fan?
So the reason why we haven't opened it up that everybody can do it remotely is because it's open to everybody. So literally we could have hundreds of thousands of people signing in from all over the country or all over the world and weighing in on our matters. So it's important that we try and keep it to the best of our ability, our RTS system anyway, to Arizona residents or those that are affected by what goes on here in Arizona. Everybody can email all of us anytime they want, no matter where in the world you are. But the RTS system, it's there for a reason, so that our committee members and the rest of our members can actually see what our constituents have to say, whether they like things or don't like things. The good news is because of our temporary problems with COVID, we have set that up that anybody that is signed up, they can actually 24 hours ahead of time sign in, request the Zoom link, and they can actually testify from home. And we have the ability to handle 300 at a time.
And you know, this is an area that I think is extremely important, right? So we have 23 standing committees, but versus the House and the Senate combined. And out of those 23, right now we know that hybrid testimony is allowed in 20 of those. And I know, you know, myself and Mr. Bowers have had the conversation. I know he's having conversations as well, but it is extremely important that we have consistency, as we have people in the public that want to be part of all committees and have their voices heard. And this is an opportunity for us to really make sure that we look at the technology that exists, allow people to participate. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get there with some of that consistency. But I do think this is an area too that we can sit down as leaders and say, okay, how can we create a fix to the system? You know, if we want to make sure that there's Arizona residents or whatever it is, have them plug in their Arizona's ID or driver's license or something. You know, I think there's ways that we can get around these systems. We have to just be willing to put ourselves in the room to iron out those issues.
I think we're pretty much out of time, but I want to ask everybody just one quick question. Senator Rios, when do you think Sunny Day is going to be?
Well, I've said there could be 2 sine dies. You know, there could be one COVID related that, you know, is early in the year, and then we come back and do our second one at the end of June. I hope that's not the case. That being said, I'm going to say May 15th.
May 15th? Did you say May 15th, ma'am? All right, perfect. Representative Boulding, your prediction.
Yeah, I think we'll finish right around the 23rd of May.
Senate President Fan?
Go with Rebecca, May 15th.
There is something that you agree on. That is awesome. And finally, House Speaker Rusty Bowers, I think last time you said May 1st, but have you changed your mind, sir?
Yes, I have. I've given this a lot of deep thought, Luigi. In fact, it's occupied most of my time. And I think the day after tomorrow would be a good day.
Did you say the day after tomorrow?
Yes.
I guess that's a wrap then. House Speaker Rusty Bowers, Senate President Karen Fan, Senate Minority Leader Rebecca Rios, and House Minority Leader Representative Reginald Boulding. Thank you again for your time. Really appreciate your spending your morning with us. And to our sponsors, Nasiro, High Ground, and AGC, thank you again. And to our audience and our listeners, we will post this recording at some point between tonight and tomorrow. Thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye for now.